Hello and welcome in. Today I'm going to be talking about three ugly games, and they are Orleans, the Castles of Burgundy, and Agricola. Now before we talk about them, let's know that all three of these games have huge, avid fan bases. People love these games. There's a website called Board Game Geek. People can log in and rate board games. Literally thousands of ratings have gone in, and all three of these are in the top 50. And there is one of these that I love. One of these three games I think is one of the greatest games of all time ever been made. Another one I think is pretty good. And the third one I think is okay. We're going to start off talking about the newest of the three games, and that is Orleans. Now Orleans kind of like New Orleans except without the new, and also France. Now of the three games, Orleans is, well, to start with, it's the most ugly. It makes the other two look not quite as bad by comparison, but it's also the one that feels the most unique when you play it. You're going to have your own board in front of you with a whole bunch of spots that tokens will go into. These tokens will be things like farmers and boatmen and craftsmen and knights and scholars. And the basic mechanism of the game is you're going to be putting these people in the spots, and once you fill up a certain spot, you actually get even more tokens. So if you want to pick up an extra farmer, you're going to put a craftsman and a boatman into the farmer spot, and you'll get an extra farmer basically into your pile of tokens you can use. And when you take those tokens, you're going to be triggering tracks on the main board, and you'll be moving up in those tracks. And those will be competing with the other players. So you might want to go for the most farmers or the most boatmen, and they have different rewards. Every track works a little differently. Not going to get into all the details, but you're going to try to churn out your board in such a way to pick up the tokens that you need, because the more tokens you get, the more people you'll be able to acquire. But also you want to move up further and further and make sure you're winning in certain ones of those tracks depending on your strategy. But why this becomes one of the most unique feeling games is it's not just get tokens, put them on boards, but this is a bag builder. You have a bag that all your tokens will go into. You can be randomly pulling a certain number from those and using them each turn. So just like in a deck builder, you try to acquire good cards that work in good combination together, so hopefully you draw those good cards and you can play them. This is a bag builder. You're going to be acquiring tokens that hopefully work well together, that you're hoping to reach in the bag and pull those out on your turn and have a good combination, good basically characters that work well together. Now there's also a board that you and the other players will be moving around and trying to acquire resources like cheese and stuff. We're not going to talk about today, but that is another element of the game. But the part that I find really unique, really interesting is making the bag, putting tokens into it, and not a deck builder, but a bag builder, pulling out tokens, then deciding how best to use those tokens in combination on your board to acquire even more. Now, of the three games I'm talking about today, where does Orleans rank? Well, that would be right in the middle. I like it quite a bit. This is the one I said is pretty good. I'd be totally down for playing this game. I really, really like it. I don't necessarily think it's one of the greatest games ever made, but I think it is a really, really cool game. All right, now we're going to go back several years, all the way to the year 2011. The next game up here is the Castles of Burgundy. In Castles of Burgundy, you're going to be acquiring tiles that are out on a main shared board, putting them into the center of your board, which is where your duchy is. There are a bunch of different types of tiles to be acquiring. There are mines, and there's pastures, and there's cities, and there's castles, and all of them will work in different ways when placed onto your board. They'll basically activate different bonuses. Mines are pretty simple. For example, you're going to place them at the end of each round. You're going to pick up a bonus silver for having one. Castles you place and you immediately get an extra turn. The way you're going to be doing all this is by rolling dice. On your turn, you're going to be rolling 2 dice and using those numbers to match up either with a spot on the board you want to take from, like, okay, we'll take from the 4th spot out here, grab that tile, or by matching up a number in your duchy, in your city, to say, okay, there's my 4, I can place something on the 4th spot by using this 4 dice here. And also you can use your dice to acquire workers, which workers are basically adjusters that you can use later to move your dice rolls higher and lower. Now, if Castles of Burgundy sounds really interesting, you want to hear more details, I actually did an entire video on just the Castles of Burgundy, so you'll find that link in the description down below. Now, the three games today, Castles of Burgundy, it's at the top. I love this game. I know from the pictures in this video, it might not scream fun right off the bat, but it is so exciting. It's really fast paced. It has some cool things it does, like when you roll, everyone can roll at the same time, so you can start thinking about your turns a little early. The dice kind of help limit your options. It's not as overwhelming when you look out there and you see all the different tiles you could take, all the places you could put them here, the goods you could sell, you're like, or the silver you can spend and actually get bonus free actions. All this stuff, it's a little overwhelming, but when you roll those 2 dice, you say, what's the best thing I can do with a 3 and a 2? I really found that helps keep the pace moving. People who get overwhelmed by options can say, okay, well, I have a 3 and a 2 this turn. What's the best decision I can make with a 3 and a 2? So because of that, I don't find the Castles of Burgundy takes quite as long as Orleans. In fact, if Orleans could have like an Orleans light version that took about half the time, I might like it close to as much. It just seems to take quite a while to get through a game where I can play the Castles of Burgundy really fast. It's really exciting. It also has a good amount of competition between the players. We all kind of want to get those tiles. So you might see a building you really want and you can close up one of your areas of your duchy first and score a whole bunch of points and also take a bonus action, but you're not taking that mine and you really want the mine. Well, you gave someone else the mine. Now they're going to get the mine, and when they get that mine, in every return they're going to get a silver, and then we get some free actions out of silver. So there's a whole bunch of number crunching, not just what's on your board, but also thinking, okay, so what is the best tile to take, considering what the other players on the table want as well. So to recap so far, Orleans, really good. I think it is a great game. Castles of Burgundy, amazing, one of my favorite games, one of the best games I think have ever been made. But by process of elimination, you probably know where that leaves the last game. We're going to have to go even further back in time for the year 2007 when Agricola came out. And now, since you already know that Agricola is in my bottom spot and the game that I told you I didn't like a ton, I'm going to start off by just clarifying myself. I think Agricola is a really good game. It's a really solid game. If I had owned Agricola in 2007, I could see myself just loving it just because all the great decisions, especially considering what games I played back in 2007, and then looking at that game, all the options, the ways basically play that game again, day to day, make different decisions, do different things, think of new strategies. I probably would have liked it a lot more if I had experienced it back then. But let me not get too ahead of myself yet. Let's talk about some gameplay. So the core of Agricola is you're going to be using meeples to take actions. These actions will do things that will improve your homestead, your farm, basically add some fences so you can get some animals in there, add some cool buildings, or upgrade the buildings that you live in that are going to score you victory points, or maybe get more people to live in your homestead, or basically try to work on food production and get cards to maybe help you cook in the oven or something. Basically things that make your homestead bigger and better. Now, Agricola is a tough game and kind of punishing. If you have too many people but not enough food, well, that's going to be an issue. Or if you have a way to acquire a lot of animals but you don't have anywhere to put them yet, you might kind of miss out on that chance to acquire animals for a while. So it's a game of kind of slowly building up. You go from round and round, you'll slowly take care of hopefully your food needs. You'll start adding more actions actually to the game as the rounds go along. There'll be harvest seasons, a bunch of interesting timing things where, okay, do I try to push for this harvest and get a big harvest before it starts? Or maybe I want to try to upgrade my house now before the harvest, and I'll try to catch the next harvest. There's, again, so many cool, so many interesting decisions. But the reason for me that I don't like it as much as the other two games is that maybe it's just a little too slow. All three of these games offer a lot of really good decisions where you can lose or win the game based on great decisions you're making, which is great. I love that in a game. This one just feels like it takes a while to kind of get going. It's not that it's bad to have a long game. I just wish that I could have offered the same amount of decisions and done it in a shorter amount of time. In fact, the same designer who made Agricola made another game the next year called Le Havre, and I like that game a lot more. It kind of has the same thing where you do a whole bunch of rounds, and as the rounds go along, you're going to finally get enough food so food isn't a crisis anymore. Then you're going to finally start getting victory points in other ways. But I feel like that game does it in a very fast-paced way where every turn is quick. And I think Agricola, at least for me, is a little slow and drags out a little bit. But I know a lot of people watching this video love it, and I completely get it. It is a great game. It's a super solid game. I probably just came around to it a little too late in my life where I'd already kind of seen games that did something similar in a quicker way. All right, so there are my thoughts on 3 games that are all super interesting, also extremely popular, and have some similar traits, like being ugly. See you in the next video.